One of the things about doing battle sequences, and particularly of this size and scale, pre-planning is everything. Because the way I look at a set is very much like it's my paintbrush. And so one goes in with a plan, and then you have all the people who you've included in the process to help you make it look better.
Here we are at Bunker Hill, just outside Boston. We're actually in Romania, but actually this ground that we're shooting on, 1,500 years ago, there was a battle between the Ottoman Turks and the Romanians here, so it's kind of a hallowed ground to be shooting such an important scene in the birth of a country.
Make it count! Fire!
The battle scenes at Bunker Hill were really fun to shoot, maybe my favorite, because you have cannons exploding and muskets firing and people riding horses and screaming, and it makes it feel very real.
The truth was, for me, to make it as authentic as possible and not cut it up. From there, it was a matter of also dialing in the human condition and saying, you know, under these conditions, you just be frightened. How do we make them frightened? With noise, with actual explosions, with actual musket fire. So once you create the setting, the true, honest setting, the rest of it kind of manages to unfold without too much more stick handling.
It's ready, aim, fire.
Billy Budd's the military advisor, and I had never worked with a military advisor before. So I didn't actually know how important it was. But once he started training these troops, I realized how would we have done this otherwise?
Halt, ready, arms. That's just for us to get it off the shoulder and here.
Billy was in the military. He was a Royal Marine, so he whipped everybody into shape. They're getting trained every week, and you could see the transformation, and really how sharp they were and how they were in lockstep, and how to hold the gun and how to fire the gun.
Fire!
Any of the officers, it's more important to give military bearing, especially from back in that day, because although I'm British and proud of it, the British senior officers in those days were full of pomp and circumstance. And then obviously you liaise with any actor that's going to be playing colonial soldiers. The thing for me, which I think was better, was not to spend time with them so that they had this renegade look rather than them trying to have military bearing, because there still wasn't a full-on blue coat army in the years of our show.
This block here are mainly attributed to British service usage.
This whole lineup?
This whole lineup, these would be English officers.
You have Ken, who's the armorer, who came with 1,000 guns. It was probably one of the coolest days in pre-production, is when we walked in and saw the 1,000 guns laid out.
This side of the table are all the guns that you, as Americans, colony guys, would have had access to almost immediately or as the time progressed. We had some guns earmarked for some of the main principal characters, but all of the principal characters were given their chance to actually select their own firearms that they was going to use as principal firearms. We fired every single gun with the exception of 2 guns on this production. We have some 400 firearms, and every one of them is a real functioning firearm. Some of them are original firearms, but some of them are actually 70-year-old to 100-year-old replicas. So even though they're replicas, they're still antiques in their own right.
With an actual musket ball in there, it would give a kick, right?
It's quite a modest recoil,
But it's just because they're so heavy,
it
right?
tends to try and come back rather than jerk up like modern-day guns do.
At times during this filming, there would be hundreds of people firing simultaneously. And these guns are not easy to load. You have to lay gunpowder in the right place, and if the gun tilts, the gunpowder's gone. And it was actually through this process that I realized how hard a battle would have been for these guys. To actually get a shot off and have it go anywhere near your target seemed impossible.
They're retreating! Cannon!
I had to shout fire cannons while I was standing next to a giant cannon that would fire on each take. And so I'm deaf in my right ear now. So, no, that's not true.
You can't import cannons, so we had to build our own cannons that practically shoot a charge to make it look like smoke's coming out of the barrel.
We built 6 cannons in total, so 4 big, battle cannons and 2 smaller ones, and I guess 1 boat cannon actually too.
They had to form, out of fiberglass, the outside, and then build literally, mill the wheels and build the whole frame of it. And then create a rigging system so that the cannon recoiled when it shot.
Cannons!
Cannon!
Rapid fire!
Rapid fire!
They couldn't always fire the cannons for real, so we worked with practical special effects, and they gave us some great elements of cannons firing and things like that. And we'll place them into the scenes where either they didn't have time or it was too dangerous to have the explosions near the actors. The weapons in that time were particularly sloppy in the sense of when they did hit somebody, they weren't very accurate, but they did create a big mess. So we're playing that up. Kari is very much into showing as much as we can that they'll allow in broadcast.
Some of the hits, if they weren't squibs, they were going to be VFX, and then I would come in with the aftermath. We had an intestines shot, and they wanted one shot of him running up the hill towards the bunker, and then he gets blown up and his guts comes out, and then so that was all going to be one shot. So then we had a 3-hour turnaround to try and turn the whole prosthetic piece so he was able to run, so it was able to stay in one piece. We had 3 hours basically, and I'd have to say it's probably a favourite piece.
We extended the redcoats and the colonists with visual effects to show larger groups of people.
We had 400 people and dozens of horses on set, then a visual effects world behind it that makes it thousands.
So we filmed it knowing that we would then have to work additional soldiers into the shots.
Go, go, go!
There was a lot of just filling up the frames with the amount of people we had to get the cameras quite close in on the action. So it was, it gives you a sense of being there because you're seeing a horse come right in front of the camera. It's an arduous and a process, and and we shot it over 2 weeks, that battle, and it was incredibly tricky to get it right. I hope we did.
It's completely amazing that the Sons of Liberty won. I mean, we've known it for hundreds of years, but it's still, when you read the story or see the story, it just seems astonishing. And I can only assume it's because they knew the land and they employed fantastic guerrilla warfare tactics, even though they were vastly outnumbered.
If you go back to that day with the accuracy of a musket, you've got to get very close to your enemy before you can open fire. Once you're in that situation, it doesn't matter how many well-drilled soldiers there are. If you're outnumbered and there's a very well-placed ambush in place, you're going to lose that fight. I certainly don't want to go on camera saying why we lost, because I'm British. We just couldn't get a decent cup of tea anywhere, so we gave it back to you.